All right, we're recording. Welcome back to another dilemma. I'm Emma.
And I'm Brian.
For,
Burns.
and today we have a special guest on.
I'm Dylan Schmidt.
Nice.
I know no one else to say that with. I'm a podcast coach and consultant, content creator, and related family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stepbrothers.
Stepbrothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I Will Ferrell or the other guy in this case?
Yeah, I don't know what of the better of the two options are, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a good
All I know
option.
is we need a headshot together.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Super glad to be here, though.
Yeah, great to have you. Do you want to tell real quick about your business and what you do?
Yeah. So I have my username and website and kind of like not persona, but handle is digital podcaster on all the social media platforms. And I have a company that essentially I coach people on how to make podcasts and do all sorts of things, all sorts of podcasts, basically how to start, grow, and monetize a podcast. And then I have a program called Podcasting Academy that actually walks people through all the steps. I work with people one-on-one and in a group setting. And then I also have another company called Content Clips, where we repurpose all sorts of content, whether it's podcasts or other recorded calls. And we turn that into short form content for social media. And we work with all sorts of companies, from insurance companies to artist management companies to coaches and consultants to marketing agencies, all different types. And it's a lot of fun. So I work with people all around the world and I make fun, sometimes silly content to help educate people on how to make their content better and stand out, and also how to attract more of the audience that they want, and also just how to kind of get over the awkwardness that comes with making content at first, because it can be a little awkward starting from scratch. But I've been doing this for a while now, and I've seen a lot, but it's fun because there's a lot of learning involved, and no day really looks the same. And no piece of content really ever looks the same either, which is exciting.
That's cool. Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it having you on. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how to grow your podcast or business. So maybe you can share a little bit about what where you encourage people to start when they're looking to kind of grow their business.
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off from the start, but I think adding on to that, I know there's different platforms. Like I enjoy listening to podcasts from like Dear Media Productions. Like I think that everyone they have on there is like just really amazing. Like I love the content on there. So if you could also dive into just obviously no one can just like be signed by Dear Media. You have to have the following, you have to have the viewers, the listeners, etc. But like my dad said, like where people can start so that eventually, or they can get signed by someone like Dear Media Productions or something.
Yeah. And can I ask you a question before I answer your question, just to help me even give a better response? What do you love about Dear Media?
I love who they sign. I think that I connect with everyone on there really well. I just love listening to just all the different podcasters, and I feel like it's very easy to navigate. So to find different people, there's constantly suggestions after I finish one. It's like, oh, here's another one that's very similar to this, but it talks about this. And I don't know why I can't think of anyone right at the top of my head, but for example, the owners of it is what's his name? Her name's Lauren and her husband, and they're just really good. I don't know.
Yeah. And I love that because for one, like it's kind of specific a little bit, right? Like podcasts are kind of this all around thing, right? You can make it a true crime podcast, you can make it an inspirational podcast, you can make it finance, education, comedy. Like there's so many different categories, and there's different networks like Dear Media or platforms. And I just love the variety it has. And for no matter what kind of podcast there is, it basically kind of all goes back to the goals. Like, what do you want to do with the podcast? And personally, like, I love just making something as cheaply as possible look way more expensive and way more awesome. So if like you were asking me like, and I don't know if you directly asked me this, but kind of like make this up and tell me if differently, but like if you were making a podcast from scratch, how could you make something that would attract Dear Media and get you to want to sign them, you know, or to like have you be with them?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it just comes down to, you know, like things you said, obviously, like audience, things like that. But I think the podcasts that I'm looking at, like when I look up Dear Media, those would stand on their own, you know, regardless of if they're with Dear Media or not. Like they don't necessarily need Dear Media to be special. It's just they, you know, help develop the podcast in a way. So I think there's a lot of development.
It's almost like it's almost like they're curating content, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of companies out there that do this for podcasts, but it's confusing if you're just starting out. Like, how the heck do I get attracted by these companies, or how can I get that help? And in a way, I guess that's kind of where I fit in a bit, because people that are doing it on their own don't have resources to figure all this stuff out, because most of the time you're not getting paid to podcast right off the bat. So you're like, how do I do all this stuff? So a lot of the tools and resources I'll like build and provide for people are trying to kind of bridge the gap of like where they're at, no matter where they're at, to where they're trying to go. So I think it starts with like where you're trying to go. You know, like, do you want to make it this full-time thing? Do you want to make it like your show where you're spending a lot of time each week doing this? And I know a lot of people are, and then a lot of people aren't too. Like some people are just like, I just want to have fun conversations, and they don't really take it seriously. Those people are awesome. It's cool too, but I think having like a specific goal, like I want it to be like this, you know. And a lot of people will say, just do it for fun. That's cool too, but like I guess because I'm a professional, like if I just said just do it for fun, that wouldn't help people get very far. That'd be like a swim instructor who's like, nah, just go swimming. Like you don't need to do swim competitions or something, you know, like so that wouldn't be beneficial for clients. But so you have to attach some like metrics to it. You got to set some like actual realistic goals, whether that's listeners, whether that's like your actual platform, your audience, because podcasting is just a tool, but really it's like a bigger thing of like your audience size, because, you know, you don't need a podcast audience to start a podcast. You don't need a social media following to start a podcast, but a social media following can help build your podcast. If you have a podcast audience, that can help build your social media following. So it kind of just goes all back to like, what is your goals really with it?
And so that leads, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it doesn't have to be like an audience driven goal too. It could just be a networking goal with a lot of like B2B podcasts I'll work with. Like the goal isn't to attract some big audience because they have such a specific audience. It's more to attract other CMOs, CEOs, CFOs. And so their audience size is not going to be the same as like someone on Dear Media. They'd be like their audience size target range. It might be like 1,000 people versus like Dear Media, they might be like 200 million or something.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, I think it's important to have sort of a focus, like, why am I listening to Emma and Brian on The Dilemma? What do they talk about in general, right? And if I'm describing it to somebody, what is it that they're tuning into, or what am I telling them? So I think it's important to have sort of a narrow focus so that you can explain that easily. But at the same time, you know, how do you do that with and still have enough topics to talk about and content and a broad enough range to, you know, to go in? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like a lot of thoughts, and I'll condense it.
Okay.
But like, I don't necessarily think that the podcast itself always needs to be narrow. I think the episode title needs to be narrow. And the episode title is like one of the first things people see next to like the actual episode art. And the more specific the title is and can get someone in the door, and then if you can keep someone in the room listening, that's really all that, like, that's the game at the end of the day. So titles, I think, should be specific, and actually get someone to want to listen to it. And then in the episode itself, as long as you're, people listen to all sorts of stuff, it doesn't have to be like a same reoccurring theme. Like, I have a podcast about podcasts. I was really hesitant to like make a podcast about podcasts because there's other of those out there, and I thought I would get bored. And then, so I like kind of did a bunch of other topics. And then when I got back to it, I'm like, actually, it goes really deep. Like, I have more topics than I could cover in the foreseeable future when I'm talking about podcasts. And so I think, like, abstract view, it's like, episode titles are important. And then in the episode itself, it's okay to like not stick to a specific subject, but at least have, like, I say, like, values for one. Like, what are some of the show values of, like, we want people to come in and feel like they're welcome. We want people to leave feeling like they had a good exchange for their time spent, because they're not giving money, but they're giving, time and their attention. So we want to make sure that we, hold the listener's attention with respect. And then the actual content of the episode, that is kind of more around like the mission of the show. Like, if it's an educational podcast, and categories, like broad categories, help with this a lot.
Okay.
Like, my podcast is about podcasting. The category is really how to become a better podcaster.
Okay. So you mentioned episode art. Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So episode art is important. And that is, so I guess before we talk about episode art, we should probably mention like how podcasts are distributed, how they're uploaded and distributed. A lot of people don't know this because it's not easy to know unless you come across some guy like me posting about podcasts all the time. But podcasts, like on Instagram, for example, you post a picture, or you go on LinkedIn and you write a post, right? And then you hit publish. Podcasts, while you could just post a video to LinkedIn and be like, this is a podcast, technically, and I'm going to get nerdy for a second. Okay. Technically, a podcast is like an RSS feed that is like, stands for a really simple syndication. You don't need that in your brain. You could forget it in 2 seconds. It's okay. But it's basically a point on the internet, which is telling, when you upload something, it gets distributed out. So there's these podcast hosting services out there, like Anchor is one of them, by the company Spotify, which is like a music/podcast app. So you'd upload your podcast audio to this app called Anchor, for example. Once you upload it to Anchor, then it gets distributed to all these different platforms. Because people don't listen to podcasts only on like one place. It's not like Instagram or LinkedIn. It's like, you don't go, oh, like it's only available on Instagram, for example. When you upload it on Anchor, it goes to, because there's like a bunch of different podcast listening apps out there. So Anchor makes it easy to go on all the different apps. And that's how you reach more people. Like, I like to listen to podcasts on Spotify. If the podcast was only available on LinkedIn, I might not hear it because I'm only listening to podcasts on Spotify. So the way like Anchor will make that easy is by distributing it everywhere. And when you set your account up on, say, Anchor, you create episode artwork, which you don't create it in Anchor. You can have someone create it for you, or you could create it yourself using a program like Canva. And then it'll ask for you to upload your episode artwork. So you put that in there. And once you do that, then every time someone goes to listen to your podcast, they'll see the episode artwork there, or your show artwork, if you don't update it every time with the episode, which is fine.
That's making actually a lot of sense.
Yeah,
People do
that's
it.
really cool.
I
Yeah.
love Canva. I use it for everything.
Yeah, Canva's wonderful. Like makes life easier. And so, the episode or the show artwork itself, you'll have like the name,
Mhm.
and then you'll have like usually a picture of the person. It varies, but that's all done once you set up your account through a podcast hosting service.
Okay, nice. By the way, you mentioned Canva on one of your guests appearing on some other podcasts, and I was listening to it. And you mentioned Canva for a vision board, and I just happened to have been working on one, and I did mine on Canva, and there it is.
What? Yes.
And it was free, and it was easy, and it was.
Yeah.
See there, you're already
awesome.
helping us out.
Oh, that's awesome. Isn't it? It's easy, right? And like you don't have to go through a magazine
and now I can
things
just put it up on my wall and it's there. And
I use it I send surveys out for work. Like, when are you looking at reevaluating your payroll, HR, whatever? Who are you using, etc. And I use Canva as, again, just like the artwork that when people like open a link or when I send it in an email, it shows up like as a picture, click on it, bam, like goes to the survey. So I use Typeform for the survey part, but Canva for the actual artwork. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Canva like has made, I use it every day. I use it with clients, like, and nobody can, there's like more professional programs out there, but nobody can tell the difference when it's done right. And, I've created assets in Canva for social media that like, it's easy. It like when you have an idea and then you can just do it easily, which is like the ultimate dream. And like Canva makes that possible. Ease. It's all about ease, I think.
Ease.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's helpful.
Yeah, this is really a perfect guess because I think
I know
we're wanting to dive into this. So this is awesome.
Yeah. So the other thing I was going to ask you about is, Emma and I do the same type of work. We're in the same line of business, sales, and we're typically doing dilemmas around sales, about things professional, how to gain access, how to, make those cold calls, building campaigns, doing marketing,
Claiming territory.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? So where do you recommend having a blend between kind of personal topics, personal branding, and professional topics, professional branding?
Yes.
Yeah. So
in my opinion, sorry. Okay. In my opinion,
I was waiting for you to jump in, Emma. Come on, let's go.
I think that people find our dynamic interesting. Like, a lot of feedback I get just from the few people that do watch at work or whatever, they're like, I love your dad and your dynamic. Like, I love listening to the podcast because of that. And so although I think it's interesting to hear two different perspectives and like the difference of someone just entering the workforce versus who's been there for a while, I also think that with us just being like a father-daughter like duo in a way, it's interesting to hear how we interact. So I feel like in a lot of our past episodes, we've just stuck to the business side of things, but learning how to weave in just like the personal side, I think would broaden our range of topics a little bit more, while also talking business.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, and what do you know what episode like number you're on?
12, or this
12.
should be our 13th.
Yeah, which is incredible, by the way. Like there's statistics out there. I forget what the exact numbers are, like the stats. I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's like 3, 7, 11, and 21 are the points that usually podcasts will drop off. Most don't even launch. They just start as an idea, right? So people are like, I got an idea for a podcast. I can't tell you how many people I don't really talk to them as much anymore. I did like a while, maybe a year ago, that people, I have an idea for a podcast. Those people don't really seem to come to me anymore because like I'll help them get it started quickly. So that doesn't just stay at the idea stage, but most will do 3 and then like just drop off. And then 21 is like the other very common drop off. Having said that, like one of the reasons why the drop off is so big from what I found is because people will make too many changes or not enough changes to make it support like their own level of excitement. And they start creating things that like they have this imaginary listener where they're like, they want to hear this. And unless you have like data, or unless you have someone also saying like, I will or will not listen based on these reasons, I think it's healthy to change things up so that you're excited as well, because that comes across to the listener. And so adding in, one about like, as far as like personal things go, if it applies, it applies, unless you're talking about like something that like nobody knows except you two. At that point, if you're like, hey, maybe like a personal family member or something, like your audience very likely won't know what's going on, of course. But if you keep things that like the public would know about, then you don't really have to worry about it. Stories are one of the most effective forms of communication and learning. So when you're sharing like personal stories, those are really helpful as an audience, as a listener. And those are personal, of course. But I think people underestimate how much of their personality, how much of their personal branding comes across from just the act of consistency, for one, and then just 2, just naturally sharing. Even if you both were just to talk about business, people, through the way your tone of voice is, through the way you communicate with each other, like all of these micro things come across to the listener that says, it's like body language, right? It says like way more than our voice sometimes. And I think it's just important to highlight that too, because a lot of people will say, it's common for podcasters to be like, am I adding in, I need to add in maybe more personality so that they know. But I'm like, they know your personality within the first 15 seconds. If you're excited to be there, or if you're just like phoning it in because you're actually too busy to even be recording this episode.
Right. That's so true. And I think that's so apparent in some of our episodes, because like you mentioned, nobody's telling you what you do and what you don't need to add in, but it's for your own personal excitement. And I can feel myself, like I get really excited for podcasts when sometimes we're just like, excuse my language, but just shooting the shit. Like we just have fun with the banter. We just are just bouncing off each other. And I'm like, that was so fun. Like I thoroughly enjoyed that. But no one told us we had to talk about that. Like nobody was telling us afterwards, like that was my favorite one, but that was our favorite one. And so if people listen because of that or whatever, it's like, well, that was just who we were, and we were just having a great time. So
yeah. And I think like, you have to like leave room for creativity and for anything to happen in the actual episode. If you script it too closely, that works for podcasts, and if that's like works for if that's what your podcast should do, because you have to script it in a certain way. Like if you were telling like a documentary style podcast, if you're doing like a NPR piece, you have to script it. You couldn't just like, just fly by the seat of your pants, because it has to fit in this certain container. But because you didn't say anything, like you're trying to make this documentary or this story driven thing, you leave that room open, and that makes you more excited as the host. But the piece that people kind of get wrong when they do that is they don't market it right. And market is kind of a vague term, but highlighting like the emphasis on why someone should listen sets the context to be open to a lot of different conversations. And without that, like a lot of podcasters don't give people a good reason to listen. So nobody really will, because they're just like, I don't know what's in this episode. And if they don't really know you, then, they're like, but if you at the 20-minute mark, talk about this thing that could be helpful to them, highlighting that through like whatever you say on a post or something would really get people to listen.
We actually started off.
I have another question for you. So for example, on one of our episodes, we put as the title, how to tackle your territory. And I think you made a great point that you have to be very specific in your title. Like as a viewer in the YouTube videos or podcasts I listen to, what's funny is the title will be like trip to Nashville, and then it'll be like a slash ended up in the ER, and I'm like, ended up in the ER. Like as a viewer, it instantly catches your attention. You click on it, you want to know why, like you want to know the details. For our episode titles, how do we make it like so narrow but also
Yeah.
We started off, I was just going to say, we started off just doing, they were titled episode 1, episode 2, episode 3.
Yeah.
So we've changed that a little bit, but we need to fine tune it.
No, I mean, most podcasts I see don't know what to title their episode, so they just like kind of do that. Like that's more common than not. But once I like usually point out like episode titles, like, oh yeah, like because you can't like see a thumbnail like on YouTube where, you know, Emma's like, oh my gosh, and like Brian's like, you know, like, you know, you can't do that with a podcast unless it's a video, but most of the time it's just going to be text. So what you referred to, Emma, with like ended up in the ER, like those usually like that's called an open loop, right? Like you create a loop that the listener or the audience has to close. Like there's so many examples of this, but like the housing market, you know, brand new update Tuesday, you know, housing market is gonna crash or something, question mark.
yeah.
So you're like, wait, I have to know about this thing. The news is like a great example of this because automatically it creates open loops every day. Like we have to know what's going on. But if one of the ways you could do that with sales, like this is not the best example, but you'll never guess what happened when I blank, you know. I have a document that I'll share with you, that family discount. I'll give it to you low price of $9,099,000.
Perfect.
$1 billion. I went through a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos, and I put together 365 podcast titles. That's like fill in the blank. So I'll have to make sure to give you that. So you really, for that, all you would do is just plug in the topic that you would need. And then you'll probably never have to create a episode title from scratch again. But basically, like it's a repeatable formula that creates curiosity in the listener or your audience, and they can't help, like they have to click it because they can't go about their day. Like the perfect one is like they can't go about their day because they're stuck thinking like, wait, what happens if I didn't click that?
Right.
And you want to do that ethically. You don't want to like abuse that to the point where you say you ended up in the ER, but you never actually like ended up in the ER or
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But some examples of that, like just looking at my document, but like it could be an easy hack to do whatever. And you wouldn't say an easy hack to do sales or an easy hack to close more clients. You would likely make it even more specific to exactly like who your, you know, target people are, that only they would know, because you want people to be like, that's not for me, or that is for me.
And like easy hack to grab the CEO's attention, like something.
Yeah, maybe even more like tell me, like, so when you're talking about sales, like what would you say are some of the themes, like some other topics that come up like around sales?
Closing.
Like, well, the things we've talked about are attacking your territory, like understanding your territory, marketing, building your pipeline.
So territory, can you tell me just a little bit more about that?
So when you're given a territory, it's typically a certain number of companies that you're aware of in a database that are assigned to you, and those companies are typically in a certain size of company, certain employee size, and in a certain geography. And based on those things, that's kind of why they assign it to you. And then you need to go in and understand who the key contacts are that you're going to be calling, that you need to reach. You're going to try to find their phone number, their email. You're going to try to understand what type of business they're in, what solutions they use for the things that you're trying to sell them or related things. And those are the kinds of things that you're sort of trying to understand about your territory when you're looking at it.
And what's like confusing about that? This sounds like a sales conversation, but I'm not selling you. But like, what's confusing about that to like a lot of people?
It can be challenging, and so it's hard to know. Like, okay, I have this territory, and it's sometimes it can be hundreds of accounts, hundreds of companies. Where do I start? Which ones are the best ones to target? Who do I try to reach? Why is this company a good target versus another company? That type of thing.
And what like, okay, got it. So like, basically also like the last 2 minutes of you talking just for the recording's sake, is like 6 months worth of content, because like everything you just said would easily be like spread out into multiple topics for episodes, whether it's like, and that's the thing is like people will go too high with things where they're like, we'll talk about territories, but within territories, there's like just organizing contacts is a subject alone that like needs to have its own conversation, because I'm sure a lot of people are disorganized and they don't know how to like, who do you contact first? So, using that, an easy hack to, and then like you would know better than I would, but maybe it's like an easy hack to organize your territories. I don't know if you have multiple territories.
It's usually one.
Yeah, and if there's like the more like
it would be maybe organizing your accounts.
That'd be accounts, because you have a territory and then accounts and then contacts in accounts.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So like maybe an easy hack to organize, or an easy hack to prioritize your sales contacts or whatever it would be in there. Like prioritize though would be the key that would people go like, oh, maybe I don't know how to prioritize this.
Yes.
I just contact
them.
And
he's giving me a hack.
Yeah, exactly.
He's giving me the cheat code.
No,
and you might not start with that title. Like you might just have an episode around organizing contacts, but then you realize like 15 minutes of one of your like subtopics in the conversation was around prioritizing contacts. So then you could easily and then another one like what most people get wrong about prioritizing contacts or something like that. So there's a lot of ways you can like single out one thing where they're like, ooh, I need to prioritize my contacts. Whatever, like the bigger itch that you can create in the episode title, the more people will be like, I need this.
Yeah, like I already thought of something right off the bat. We could say like what most people get wrong about connecting with someone, because that's our whole job, is trying to build these connections and like rapport with these people. But there's so many ways that could instantly turn that contact off of wanting to have a conversation with you. So there's just so many ways you could go with just such a narrow. I love that.
And it's like books, really. I mean, how many people buy books that they don't read? And a lot of the books, you don't know what's in a book until you read it. But the titles themselves are typically aspirational. They're typically like, how to win friends and influence people. All these titles, they're usually like, there's a sense of ownership over them, whether they read the book or not. I got a bunch of books over here and I've read all of them. No, just kidding. I don't know. I haven't read probably most of them, but we select it based on the title and we keep it on our shelves. If the title was embarrassing, we'd be like, I'm not putting that up there. So
yeah, someone once said, if all your books are end with "for dummies," it's probably not a good thing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But side note, I've been on a "for dummies" like buying spree lately.
No, there's some really good books. That's their hook, right? That's their hook.
Yeah, they're so good.
But yeah, I don't know if you want that lined up on your.
Yeah, the same. I'm like, I don't
behind
want to put
you
that
on yourself.
Yeah, they don't look good on the bookshelf.
Right.
I bring them up.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to, are you okay with me changing gears a little bit, Emma?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay. So When it comes to you mentioned earlier a little bit about like your social media presence versus your podcast versus, um, you know, personal life, business life. There's all these different, we have all these sort of different personas, right? Different
Yeah.
places that we exist. And a lot of times we keep these very separate. Sometimes we keep them all, they're all very blended. I've kind of chosen to have somewhat of a blended life in essence. But how do what is your recommendation around that? Like, my largest, I guess my largest social media presence is on LinkedIn because I
Mhm.
have a lot of business contacts. As Emma mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 800 years, give or take. And so over the time, I met a lot of people and developed a couple thousand contacts on LinkedIn. Um, so, you know, you, I like to share with those people, you know, Facebook. I've found that Facebook doesn't really care about our podcast. Nobody watches it. The topics are too business related, I think. But LinkedIn, I get some interest. But I don't know. What are your thoughts around those types of
Yeah,
things?
I think like people, it's confusing and I get it. And it's something I think about a lot and talk about with a lot of people. Like it's really up to, I think, an individual's comfort level. Like you don't have to share personal life to grow anything on social media, but also just know at the same time, like if you only share things that aren't about you, then it feels that way. Like a brand is not built by like, well, it could be taken down by like maybe a single sentence or something, but a long term, like whether it's growing an audience or personal branding, it's built like how you consistently do things or how you don't consistently do things. Like if you don't show up, that becomes part of the brand is inconsistency.
Mm,
So it's really like not just a single snapshot, but over time. And if you're only like showing up in this one dimensional direction, that's how people will usually view it as, unless they know you personally. It's harder to, build a relationship if it's very one dimensional and I'm coming from this authority kind of perspective. So adding in like your own personal stories, I think are helpful just to build a connection. And at the end of the day, like the some most of our favorite brands are like about connecting with people. With Apple, like they connect, that's not a personal brand, but they connect with people and they're this huge company and it's because they hit people on an emotional level and they're all about storytelling and empathy and connection. So I think like, for me personally, I don't share like 40%, well, probably more than way more than that, I guess. Probably, I don't know what the ratio would be, but maybe 30% of my, um, I guess, I'm sorry, that's me doing math on the fly. 70% of my life, I probably don't even share. People fill in the blanks of like what they think about me. I can tell in my direct messages of like, they think I, I don't know, they make these assumptions. They'll write, and I'm just like, whoa, they didn't even, yeah. So people will always, fill in their own stories in their head. But I feel like there's also this need that you have to share your ups and your downs. And it's like, you get to share whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's going to be on the internet. And to me, like, I think values based, like, is this helping someone else? Like, can I pick someone out there who, whether it's even if they're just going to laugh, like that's a huge thing too, is just
sure.
humor. But like, is this just going to help someone? And I could like defend it being like, I posted this because I knew there would be one person that might be like, find this humorous or just like find value in this. I'm
Mm,
always looking, like thinking of value. Does this providing any value or is this self-indulgent? Am I just doing this for myself? And if it's there, that's really not being like social. That's like going to a party and being like, anyways, so I, just
yeah,
randomly at a
right.
party say
Right.
something like about yourself, and people are just like, what?
Fast.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a balance, and I don't think it looks the same for everybody. Like, do you think so too?
Yeah, I mean, Em and I try to balance it, at least in our discussions. Like we've even talked about some of the emotional and mental strain that life has had on us, and
Yeah.
the challenges we've had in therapy we've needed to attend. And because I think a lot of people don't talk about that, and they
Yeah.
do deal with these things, and they're very serious. And if you don't address them, then they can become worse. And so
Yeah.
we've shared personal things as related to that, and then we've shared some successes and wins in our life and things like that.
I think a lot of the stories come naturally within our conversations. It's never like, in the beginning we bulleted everything out, like what we're going to talk about. And I remember filming the very first one, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable with you telling me the story before you tell it on the podcast, because it loses all authenticity, and there's no real reaction from me because I already know what's about to be said. And so now going into like different episodes and just conversations come up, and we just like, oh yeah, like let's talk about that. That was fun, or that was cool, or I don't know, something like that. And it allows for that authenticity factor.
Yeah. I think like in recognizing that too, like what you do feel comfortable with and what you don't feel comfortable with is, I think, what's important. Like if you do feel comfortable with sharing something, and like that's cool. And if there was ever something where you like don't feel comfortable with, not feeling like you need to, like you don't have to overextend yourself. Like for me, mental health and like conversations, all that stuff, like I kind of have a boundary of like where I go with it, because I'm like, there's processing, like emotional processing that I'll do with a therapist. And I could easily be like, oh, I'm dealing with this thing, but I'm like, I don't really want to have a bunch of messages my way, like advice and things like that.
True.
And I'm like, maybe I'm thinking about something. And then there's sometimes where I just like will talk about like things, but I think like sometimes people also use struggle as like a form of connection, which is okay. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's one right or wrong way. Cause I just saw a post before hopping on here of a peer that was sharing like mental health issues. And I'm like, I don't like, of course, for one, really want to like judge anything about that. But I will say like that I think it's great that she did that. And I could not see myself doing that. Not that it makes it right or wrong, but like I just, that's a boundary I have of like not putting like my stuff there, because for one, I like inviting stuff. Like people that follow me on social media don't even know I have a wife because I don't share about her. So removed.
They assume that you just do podcasts and you play that guitar when you're done podcasting,
which is probably more accurate than anything else. But not playing the guitar part. But yeah, so like, and I just don't share her because it's like she didn't ask. For one, she's not like, hey, can you post about me? And we talk about that. But I just keep that separate because I look at it like business, and it's not like, oh, I'm hiding this part of my life. It's just a part where I'm like, I feel more comfortable having a part, it's also like,
and that's respecting her boundaries as well, because
that's also building out your audience, because you've set those boundaries so your audience knows what to expect and why they're listening to you. They're not listening for you to tell them about your wife and your family life. They're listening because you have some great advice and they like your personality. And so I think that's
you're not giving marriage advice on your podcast. That's not what it's about. So
exactly. Yeah. And it's easy for like on the creator side to be like, oh, maybe, but I was talking with the client the other day, and she, at the end of it, like I've done multiple sessions with this lady, and at the end of it, she's like, are you married? And I talked to her for hours and hours over the course of months, and she didn't know that. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, oh my gosh. Like, and I'm just like, yeah, but like, if it helped you become a better podcaster, I would share that I have a wife. But me having a wife does not, unless there was a story there, but like, it's not like Jen was like saying, I don't know. I have no like really good podcast. I don't have any podcasting stories with her, so I'm like, it doesn't come up.
And I think when those kinds of things came up for us, it was definitely related to a story that was part of what we were talking about, and so it just made sense to mention it. But
like sometimes it's weird being in sales because a lot of time you're having conversations with people, or maybe not because they don't pick up the phone. But it's almost like you're on a show 24/7. And you're putting on a face a lot of times, like whether your home life looks good or bad, you're showing up to work and you're smiling and dialing. That's the terms we use. And so a lot of times the conversation of mental health and like family life came into play when it's like learning how to balance that. And we just talked about how to kind of turn it off and leave it at work, and then just kind of not be yourself, but in a way like come home and leave that up.
and and the challenge with that is that you still want to be authentic. You want to be yourself with these customers and build rapport, because people buy from people that they like and they trust, and you want to, you can't fake that. That's
no,
something you have
I
to
think
be
about this a
authentic.
lot, and working from home and creating content, and like my personality is what is like, that's what the whole like thing is, you know?
Right.
Although like I created, the reason why I named it Digital Podcaster wasn't like me as digital podcaster. It was actually meant to be a company name from the start, so that one day it's also other personalities. So it wasn't reliant. That's why I didn't call it Dylan Schmidt,
Right.
because it's not eventually going to be just me. But that's like years down the road. But I'm like, I'm going to start that now. But one thing I think too is like, have you read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini? I don't know how to say his last name. It's a great book. He's really intelligent, like in a great, like pretty easy read. If you're ever on a long drive, maybe. It's a great, and he just talks about like persuasion and building influence, and essentially, right, like building rapport. And one of the big takeaways I had from that book was like how like much I felt like I needed to do to build rapport and build connection with somebody, and how much like I can just get out of the way and let them like, I'm just like this little thing. I kind of like, I'm not saying obviously either you do this, but I found this with podcast episodes too, where I'll be like, oh, I got to really like do a bunch. And I realize like I got to do actually very little. Like when I'm interviewing guests, I have like a transcription software, and it shows me the percentage of like people talking. And like I talk like I think 15 to 20% of the episode on my podcast. That's not like normal for everybody.
Sure.
But like I'm really just like a little bink, 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 like here and there. And they're the ones talking. And so I just wonder sometimes too, I feel like we have to add in more of our like, it's almost like we have to like the connection points we find with people. I feel like there's always like two ways of doing it, or multiple, more than two. And there's like a lower lift way of building a connection. Because through my content, I will say like, if I had to, I want to say get on the level that people were at, like I don't know if this makes sense, but like I have to get on their level, but like I really can't be at their level because I'm trying to lift them up to a new level to help them grow. And if I was to only be like, oh, I know it's so hard to podcast with life and just like editing and marketing and all these things and promotion, and like it's too late, it's too early, it's this, it's that. And like you really like just laser focus, I feel like, and then people get on to my train rather than I have to get on theirs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and by the way, you did just give some really good marital advice as well as sales advice, and you didn't even realize it. Listen more than you talk, right?
Yeah.
Relationships, whether that's in sales, building rapport, personal life. We do a lot better if we listen more than we talk, because that's how you make somebody feel heard. And so I think that's, good advice in general.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because creating content, like podcasting for one, requires talking. And I am like not that person normally. Like, and that's what's like hard, I think, for people to understand when they come across my stuff, is they hear me talking, they hear the stuff. If I'm on a call with the client, like everywhere else, I'm just listening, because not like in a way of like, oh, I need to listen, because that's going to do more for the outcome, whatever we want it to be, than me talking. But you can't not like talk to create content, right? You know, that would be boring if it was just me sitting there.
Right.
But a
Yeah,
podcast of
I've
just
got this
quiet.
podcast and all I do is listen.
That might be actually like $1 million idea. We're just
That might be, you just sit there and every few seconds you're like, yep.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I have multiple accounts and I'm always like testing things. And one thing I've been doing for like 9 months now is I have a news account where I report the news every day, and it's 15 seconds and it's the opposite of my normal content. And I read a script and I report the top 3 news headlines of the day, and it's news for people who don't like the news. And I've turned it into a podcast. It's a 15-second podcast. There's no personality, there's no opinion. It's just straight facts. And it's taught me a lot as well, just about like, for one, how little you have to do, like the result you get, because it has thousands and thousands of people, and like there's no personality. I don't respond to comments. I don't look at the camera. I don't inject any personality. I look like a computer character almost, because I'm literally just like the top 3 news headlines of November 22nd, 2022. Like, and nothing changes. And every day there's comments like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's just proved to me like you don't have to also have this character of anything. Like you could,
Right.
just the simple fact of like anything you do is like people can catch on to that.
That's true.
I want to tune into that because I
Yeah.
hate the news. It's always it's
Yeah.
it's like all one way or all the other way. There's nothing that just gives you the
15
news.
seconds, you just grab my attention. Bam.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really like 10 seconds because the script has like a beginning and an ending. And it's just like, it came to me one night and I was like, news people don't like the news, simple social news, and nothing's changed. I'm probably going to pause just for life here, like at the end of the month, for a couple months. But it's been really interesting watching in certain days, like the views shoot up and I'm like, this is so weird. And so I joke with Jen, I tell her like, I got to go report the news. I'm a newscaster now. But it's, yeah.
You got to get a Ron Burgundy suit
Totally.
when you do it.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a green screen and I thought about like,
Yeah.
I kind of missed the opportunity. On April 1st, I really wanted to like do something, but
That'd be fun.
maybe next April 1st.
There you go. Okay, I have one last question and then we'll wrap because we're way over our time, but this has been really great. I see you have a really cool microphone, and Emma and I have been looking at getting mics. You can see I use this silly looking headset because it works really well for me. Do you have recommendations in terms of mics that aren't, outlandishly expensive but still get the job done?
Yeah, like I try to make it as easy as possible because there's a lot of options out there. So the like basic, well, actually now is probably the best time of the year to buy anything because everything's on sale, it seems like. The Samson Q2U is the podcast that I would recommend, or podcast microphone that I would recommend. It's USB, so you can plug it straight into your computer. You don't need any fancy hardware. You don't need any fancy nothing. You don't need like really anything. It's just kind of like this. And yeah, that's the best, like it's, I would say, entry to intermediate level microphone. And honestly, there's no major reason to like upgrade beyond that other than like looks. Like if you wanted one that looked any other way, but it's a great sounding microphone. It's easy to use. It'll last you a long time. It's, I don't know, maybe with like sales going on, but it's definitely under $70. And that is always like my number one recommendation.
Okay.
The next one up from there is this one called the Shure MV7. That one, depending on sales wise, is like $220. And that one's like a fancy looking, just like a different looking one. It's more common. You see that on like multi-million-dollar podcasts. So it's not like it's expensive in the sense of like the cost, but even huge podcasts are using that microphone.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Video. I like your blurred background and how clear you are.
that is harder to achieve under $70. No, just,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is like a fancy camera setup. There's a couple different things, like Logitech has a webcam called the C920. That's like a good, actually that one's probably $70 around that maybe. That's a good option, but it's not going to look like this. Like this camera is fancy. The lens is fancy, but regardless of whatever camera, even if you're using your webcam or the Logitech C920, all the trick is to it is lighting. That's going to improve it the most. So I just actually,
it's terrible.
I know.
I know mine's really harsh today.
It's always it's a moving target, honestly. Like
It is.
I have multiple lights that are off in here right now because I'm messing.
Are you using a DSLR? Is that what it is?
This one's a DSLR, yeah.
Okay.
And this is like,
is it like something Peyton would shoot with, or is it totally different?
I used it because this is like my job. Like I have the fanciest thing, you know.
Sure.
So this isn't actually the fanciest camera, but it's a Sony A6400. And I'll nerd out here for a second, with a Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4 lens.
Okay.
And then when it comes to lighting, because there's no window in front of me, I just have a window over here. So the lighting in here, there's none basically, like that I'm working with. So I have a light to both sides of me here. You can actually tell on my hands what temperature it is too. This one's obviously a little warmer. This one's a little cooler. This one's brighter too. And they're coming right here. So it has an evenly lit space going on. But, you know, any lighting helps, honestly. And it starts to, once you become observant of it, same with like audio quality, all these little things, you start going down the rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, like this doesn't look right. This doesn't look right. And, you know, I've done so much, and I literally was at IKEA last night and I was like, I'm going to try this little light. So it's a constant like experimenting thing.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it doesn't quite matter as much. Your audience doesn't notice as much as you do. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. So we're going to close with this. Favorite must-have Thanksgiving dessert. What is your thing that you had? You go to Thanksgiving dinner, and if this item isn't there, you're kind of like let down.
It's easy and it's boring, but pumpkin pie with whipped cream.
Okay.
For sure. What about
classic?
Emma, what's yours?
Mine's sweet potato souffle. I love sweet potato souffle.
That's not a dessert, really. I mean, it kind of tastes like one.
Sugar, has brown sugar on it. Sometimes marshmallows.
Marshmallows.
That's most.
That's the healthiest dessert option. That's like,
it's probably about the same sugar content as a
that's
pumpkin
true.
pie.
That's true.
Mine is pecan pie. Talk about sugar. Yeah, that's kind of my thing. My mom makes a really good pumpkin roll, and so if I'm with her, I obviously got to have that. In fact, I'm just gonna hit Emma up to make that this year.
Nice.
Because she's pretty good at it.
And I said no.
Oh, really? You said no?
He asked me, and I said no because I'm gonna be too tired.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought of the pumpkin roll too. When you asked me that, I was like, "What pumpkin roll?" But that's almost a rare thing, so I went with the more common.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you not have pumpkin pie? But pumpkin roll, that is
top tier.
Yeah, not
Chef's
too
kiss.
shabby. Do you cook? Do you cook on Thanksgiving? Is there something that is your specialty?
No, I don't cook. Maybe one day, but I just blame it on the business.
Nice.
I'll try and earn as much that it's not a thing that I don't know, but it's nice. It's a relaxing thing to do. So I want to get into it more.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
My thing that everybody wants always when I am bringing something to Thanksgiving. Yeah. What is it, Emma?
Famous mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes. Yeah. So I have a unique recipe for them. They're not your normal mashed potatoes. Yeah.
I love that.
Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been enlightening and always great to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Out of your day to be here.
Yeah. And I can't wait to keep following. And am excited to hear about what you've learned along the way too, because I'm sure you already have like noticed differences and like how you do things. And just imagine like another 12, another 24, another 36. Like the more you do it, it's going to be exciting to hear too. Not like I honestly have no idea what you're going to learn all these things. So it's going to be exciting to hear. And
yeah, we'll have you back. Maybe on number 21, we'll have you back.
That'd be a special episode. We have a
The magic
celebration
number.
Or do we go 22? Because then
maybe 22. Our
Yeah.
goal, actually, it's funny you mentioned the number 21.
I was going to say it.
We set that as a goal.
Nice.
Of getting to 21 was our goal, and then
that's how old I was. So we're like, oh, should we do 50 because that's how old you are? 21. So that's how old I am, and we're like, let's do 21. That's our goal. Every week we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get to 21, and then hopefully by then we'll have picked up a rhythm to take it even further.
Yes. Oh yeah, we could have a whole episode like talk about too, like what's next, and I could help talk you through that, and we could even relate it to like things that would be interested in the audience. So many things we could do, but I'm super excited for both of you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah.
Sarah, Jen.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.